Hey everybody, welcome to our Facebook Live. It is Monday, October 7th, and I'm here really happy you're here with me today because we are going to be talking about the power of words because words have a lot of power. So welcome. Jeff, you just jumped in. Just tell me hello, tell me where you're from. I love to read those, see where Grace tuning in from. So as always, announcements first. The book, the big book, the short title. The long title is Common Sense Parenting with Pam, the manual you wish they came with. It's 8 books in one. It's like 298 pages. It is in final edit stages. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, so I have gone back over it like 3 times so far. Probably one more good time, and then it will be loaded up on Amazon and should be available by next week for you to purchase. So I'm really excited about that because it's been a labor of love, and I'm really happy to finally get that out there. Okay, secondly, the podcast, Common Sense Parenting with Pam. You see the consistency here? Consistency is key in everything. Remember that, especially in parenting. But the podcast is coming out probably in 2 weeks. It'll be on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. each week. The episode will be released, so you can hear it then, or you can, jump in later on it. But the first 10 weeks are going to be the 10 foundational skills all children need for success. I did a poll and I've had like 300 guesses. Please do that. So, I did some Facebook Lives and they were very brief that I touched on those 10 skills. And the podcast will be a little bit more expansion because each episode will be 15 to 20 minutes long per skill. And then I'm writing the book. It won't be quite that big of a book. It won't be 298 pages, but I will go into a lot of more detail and depth on what I mean by the 10 foundational skills, give you examples, give you strategies, how you can put this into practice in your parenting and in your child's life. Okay, so I'm really happy to get that done. Yeah, lots going on. Okay, let's jump into this today because this for me is one of my soapbox topics. I was very fortunate to be raised in a very positive household. So my parents spoke to us respectfully, positively. I never really heard nasty things said. I mean, I don't remember ever having a nasty thing said to me from my parents. And I was just raised in a very positive environment, and I raised my children that way because typically you parent how you're parented because it's just what you know, right? So when you are speaking to your children, and even to yourself, and we're going to talk about that a little bit, when you're speaking to your children and you're saying things to them that are negative or positive, it helps them form their self-perception and their beliefs about themselves. And it can affect their emotional health and their mental health and their behavior, right? So you are forming this foundation we've talked about before with your children, and how you're speaking to them has an impact, positively or negatively. Now we're hoping for the positively, right? It's so important that you choose wisely how you speak and what you say. And I know, as parents, we get busy, we just start talking, we say things, we don't even realize we're saying them. And I'm going to share some examples. We don't realize what we're doing, what we're saying, because we just get maybe in a habit of it, or it was maybe the way you were raised. And so you just do that because that's what you think is okay, because that's how you were raised, right? So we're going to talk about that because that tone, and when I say the words you use, I'm not only talking about the letters you put together to form a word. I'm talking about your body language, your tone of voice. All of that has power. Let me give you an example. So I could say to someone, "Aren't you sweet?" Or I can say, "Aren't you sweet?" Okay? Same words, different body language, different tone of voice, 2 different messages I conveyed with 3 words. All right? So, hey, Terry. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to think back to when you were a child. Just take a second. Think back to something somebody said to you negative. It could have been your parent, your sibling, a teacher, a friend, a neighbor, a relative. Now, just think for a second. Like, recall that thought because we all have one. Now that you have that thought, go back and feel that feeling. How did you feel when they said that to you? Were you sad? Did you cry? Were you hurt? Were you angry? Were you frustrated? Were you surprised? Like, wow, where did that come from? Were you shocked? Like, whoo, how did you feel? Hey, everybody coming in. Hey, Mary Christine. How did you feel? Feel that feeling in your body, because your feelings, your thoughts have emotion, and it impacts your body whether you believe it or not. Okay? So think about that thought. Think about how that feels. Now, how did they fix it? Did they? Maybe they didn't. They just said something nasty. He was a neighborhood kid or something and walked away. Maybe they said, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to say that. I take it back. Will you forgive me? I apologize. I was just angry. Whatever it is they said. But did it take away the damage? No. Oh, no. It may have lessened it a little bit. You may have been very forgiving and said, oh, don't worry about it. But you may have said that, but you're really thinking, like, I can't believe they just said that to me. Because that sticks with you. It has power. It can change who you are and how you feel about yourself. That's a big responsibility as a parent. What you're saying to your children, how you're saying it, and also how you're talking to yourself. So, are you still carrying it around with you, what that person said to you all those years ago? I'm going to give you some examples. Okay, I have a good friend. We've been friends for probably 35 years. And she worked at a job 30 years ago. Now I want you to keep this in mind. 30 years ago. That was toxic, a toxic environment. She worked there for several years. But then it started getting toxic. New people came in, new management, whatever. And so people were gossiping about her, saying nasty things about her. She's a wonderful person. I think she just had a really good work ethic, and maybe they didn't appreciate that. I don't know, whatever reason. But it finally got to the point where she was so sad and so depressed, she quit her job. Just left. She has never worked since. At all. But do you know, I still hear about this same story 30 years later. And I'm not joking. I can't tell you the number of times she's told me about how miserable she was, how these people were nasty, the things they said to her, the things they did to her. It's like she put it all in a sack, she throws it over her shoulder, and she just lugs it around with her everywhere she goes. Why would you want to do that? Why would you let someone have that power over you? The words do have power. They do have impact. And every time she's talking about that, guess how she's feeling? She's just revisiting that all over again and just taking that on all over again. That's how powerful words are. That is how powerful they are. Let me give you another example. I worked in childcare for a very long time. You all know that. And I was in a center in another state, in a toddler room in a church-based childcare facility. Really high-quality facility. Very well respected. I'm in the toddler room and I'm observing, and part of observation is language. So I'm documenting language and I'm listening all the time. And, I'm big about this. This is my soapbox topic, right? So I hear the teacher say, these kids were 1 to 2 years old, a little 18-month-old in particular. He was being an 18-month-old. He was throwing things, he was dumping things, he was pushing friends, he was hitting them, and he was climbing on shelves. Yeah, that's what they do. And she looked at him, and this is right after 9/11. In a very sweet voice, she said, "You're such a little terrorist." And I was like, I remember being like stunned. But in those situations, I'm supposed to keep a neutral expression, which is very hard for me because I'm very expressive with my face. And I had to just sit there and I've documented it. And did the report to the agency that contracted with my company. And the lady called me and she said, "Did she really say this? She's such a wonderful person. Like, everybody loves her. The parents love her. She's been there forever." I said, "Yeah, she's great. She was really sweet. She was a good teacher. But yes, she did say that." So they had a conversation with her, and she was appalled. She said, "I didn't even know I said that. I can't believe I said that to a child." Now, he's 18 months old. He didn't know what that meant, but other people are around and they're hearing that. That's a negative comment to say to anybody, especially a child. So I want you to think about what you're saying when you're talking to your children. And I would have childcare providers do a little homework. I'll tell you about that in a minute because I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. But let me tell you another example. And see, I'm just tuned into this because this is such a thing for me. I tune into this no matter where I go. I'm in the library with my 3-year-old grandson last week. Our one library here has a playroom that has a foosball table, ping pong table, air hockey table, Lego table, and some arts and crafts. Great. So we're in there, he and I, by ourselves. He's playing, everything's great. In walks the mom with her 4-year-old and her like 14-month-old. I think she told me he was 14 months old. What do you think he did, this 14-month-old? Straight to the Lego table, teeny tiny little pieces. He's picking them up and putting them in his mouth. Okay, here's what I'm hearing. No, put that down. Get that out of your mouth. Didn't I tell you to stop? Quit it. Get over here. Stop it. Put it down. No, no, no. Put it down. Put it down. Put it down. Okay. So after 5 minutes of this, I left because I could not stand hearing that over and over and over. She didn't redirect him. She didn't say, oh, let's go over here and do this, or that's for building. Let's keep it out of your mouth. She didn't take him out of there because it wasn't safe for him to be in there. If he's 14 months old and you're putting a bunch, like hundreds of little pieces, teeny tiny pieces in front of him, what do you think he's going to do? He's 14 months old. That's what they do. That's their job description. So I walked out. I couldn't take it. I took my grandson somewhere else to play in the library. There were some other areas. I just don't want to hear that negativity. It's like she was just, oh, it was too much for me. Okay, when I worked with child care providers, I did two things. So when I assessed and I did language and I documented it, and I would have conversations with them later saying, these are things I heard you say. And they'd be like, I said that? I don't even remember saying that. I was like, well, I don't make it up. This is what I heard. I document what I'm hearing. Because I'd sit in the classroom for 3 or 4 hours. And they'd be like, oh my goodness, I had no idea. So then we would work on how they could change negative statements into positive ones. And we're going to do some of that here. But one teacher in a 1-year-old room, in 3 hours, I sat in her classroom. I heard her tell these 1-year-old children 51 times, no, 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 no. Sometimes it was, cut it out, stop it, no, 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 no. You know, all those variations. So we had to talk about that. And she did a lot of shh, 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 shh. So, yeah, we had to work with her on that. So what I would ask teachers to do, when I would give them the list of the negative phrases I heard them say, I would go back and say, take this list, and I want you to reframe this into a positive statement. How could you say this where you're telling children what you want them to do instead of not to do? Okay? You can say the same thing, get the message across, but the words you use, the tone of voice, makes a difference. I'll give you this example. With my grandson, still at the library, because we left that space. Now I take him outside, and there's this ramp. And I did a reel about this the other day. It's this ramp. It's about 5 feet high on the steep end. And it comes down, and it's, about 3 feet wide. And it's kids climb up. They have to get on a stool, then they have to climb up the back of this structure, and they have to put the trucks down. Now he has played on this multiple times because we frequently go to the library. But this day, he was being 3. He walks over, he sits on it, and not the high part, down on the lower part. And he just looks at me like, what are you going to do? I didn't even crack a smile. I just looked at him and I said, that ramp is for trucks, and you have a choice. You can either get down yourself or I can come and get you down. What would you prefer to do? And he got off. And I said, wise decision, buddy. And we kept on moving. Now, I could have said, get down. What do you think you're doing? You know that's not for you to be on. That's for trucks. You could fall. You could hurt yourself. I could have said all kind of negative things in harsh tones. But I chose not to. I just reframed it. Here's what I expect. Here's what this is for. Here's what I expect you to do. Take your pick. And he got down and never got up again. Okay? It really can be that simple. But if you were not raised that way, or you don't do that now, you have to teach yourself. You have to retrain yourself how to do it. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's an easy process you're going to do overnight. I'm saying be aware of it. Be cognizant of what's coming out of your mouth. So here's another thing I used to have providers do. I would tell them, I want you to take a tape recorder and put it on so you could turn your phone on when you're with your kids. Turn it on. Record yourself. Just forget it's on recording you and just engage normally with your children as you always do. And then, not the next day, but maybe 2 days later, play it back. Play it back. Write down everything you heard that you said that was negative. And then reframe that into a positive way. And that's one way you can start retraining your brain and yourself. And think about when you were saying that. So when you're listening to that and you're going, oh, I said why are you being so lazy today? Okay? Think about, what was your tone of voice? What was your body language? Do you remember it at the time? Wonder how that made my child feel. So start noticing and observing and internalizing what you're saying and how that's impacting your child, because you're the role model. They believe what you say about them. Okay? So here's something I did, because I trained providers. Hey, everybody coming in. We have lots of Canada folks here. This is great. And everyone else too. I'm glad you're all here. I did trainings for childcare providers all the time for 20 years. And one of them I did that really, really was powerful was I physically showed them the impact that the words have. Now, we've all heard the thing where you can take your tube of toothpaste, squeeze it all out, and tell kids, put it back in, and they're like, we can't put it back in. And then you go, right, exactly. When you're saying things to kids at school or you're doing things like that, you can't fix it. You can't undo the damage, right? Great visual. But I wanted to have a little more impact for these teachers. And let me just say, there are a lot of wonderful, wonderful early educators out there, all right? And I worked with many who were superb. But there were many that needed a lot of work. Okay, I'm not going to say they're terrible. I'm saying they need some work. They needed to retrain their brain. They needed to think about what they were saying, reframe it. We would go through that whole process with them. But I took an old plate. I had a ceramic plate. Now, you can do this if you want to do this with your children. I'd say 3 on up maybe. Get an old bowl or a cup or a plate. If you have to go to Goodwill and buy one or a yard sale somewhere, or one you have in your cabinet you no longer use. Put it in a grocery bag. Double up, grocery tight, put it on the table. Now, what I would do was and I did a reel about this last year, I think, with a cup. But I had one teacher come up at a time. I'd say, hey, I need a volunteer who can help me. And they'd come up and I'd hand them a hammer. And I'd say, hit that for me, please. And they'd be like, what? I'd say, hit it, but I'm going to break it. Go ahead, hit it anyway. And they'd hit it. And it was funny because they wouldn't want to hit it hard. They'd be like tapping it. I'd say, no, harder. And they'd hit it. Then I'd call the next teacher up and the next teacher, and they'd take turns. And now, this thing is in thousands of pieces. It's shards. It's just cracked beyond belief. And I would untie the bag and I would dump it out on like a cookie sheet, And I'd lift it up and I'd say, you guys see this? They go, huh? I put it down and say, okay, who wants to come fix this for me? And they'd be like looking around, like, is she crazy? What is this woman doing? And they've been through, a lot of them came to a lot of my trainings. They knew how I could be in some of the trainings, but they'd be like, what is she doing? I'd say, who wants to fix this? And then I'd hear somebody go, well, we can't fix it. It's really broken. And even if we could, we don't have glue, we don't have anything. How are we supposed to fix this? Which was my point. You can't. Once that damage is done, you cannot undo it. You cannot make it like it was before, ever again. You've lost the opportunity to do that. You've said it. You've impacted that person. You can't change it. You can't go back and go, oh, wait, let me glue all these thousands of pieces back together and make this a perfectly nice, beautiful plate again. Not going to happen. Okay? It's a great lesson to teach your children if you're a parent or if you're a teacher in a classroom, childcare even. Teach them this. Go, look how broken this is. You said this. These are the words, because this is the words that the teachers were using. This was their words, their body language, and their tone of voice right here. And that plate represented that child and the impact that they're having on that child. And so when you can teach your children that, and you can say, look, when you say something nasty to a friend at school, or you do something hateful to somebody or mean, see the damage you've done? See this? What's happened physically to this? We can't fix this. So be mindful of what you're saying. Be mindful of what you're doing. Okay? I think I've driven that home. I think I've hammered that home enough. But you get the point, right? It was very impactful. And I have teachers that remember it. Like years later would say, I remember that training you did. And when I'm in the class, I'm getting ready to say something. I picture that hammer and I picture that plate breaking. And I'm like, oh. And I stop myself. And that's what I want you to do. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to record yourself. Or if you don't want to record yourself, if you hear yourself saying something negative, just keep a little notebook maybe. Just write it down. Don't criticize yourself. Don't judge yourself. This is just an experiment. We're just going to write it down. Write it down. Write it down. And then later, I want you to go back and I want you to say, all right, how could I have said this differently? How could I have let my child know the same message, but in a kinder, gentler way? with a better impact, a positive impact. And it might take you some time to figure this out. Now I'm going to share with you. I wrote a book called What to Say Instead. It's on sale on my website. Actually, for those of you who are on today, I'm going to give you a code. Actually, let me put it right here in the comments right now, because it's only going to be up for 24 hours. So you're going to go in and do SP30 if you want to buy it. And I'm not pushing this on anybody, but here's the code. So you go to my website, you look for the read, and it'll say What to Say Instead, and put in code SP30, and you're going to save like $3 on this book. Anyway, I'm going to give you an example, because I wrote this book because of all of the things I would hear in childcare. And some of them were like, or parents, I listen even in the stores. I'm just tuned into it, I guess. And so here's some common phrases. So I did like 13 common phrases. Well, here's one I used to hear a lot. You are so bad. Parents would say to kids or teachers, you quit being so bad. Why are you so bad? Okay, first of all, they're not bad. Their behavior is inappropriate. No child is ever bad. They're just misbehaving. So the child and the behavior are two separate things, and you need to keep that in mind. So here, I'm going to give you some examples of how you can say this instead. If you want to hop in here and tell me how you could say it instead, put some in there. That'd be great. I'd love to see it. But instead of saying you're so bad, quit being so bad, you can say, I know you can make better choices next time. You can say, oh, I see you just threw that toy at your brother. I know you can make better choices next time. That probably hurt him. Okay? So you're telling them in a positive way, quit it. Quit it. Okay? But nicely. You can say, everyone makes mistakes, but we learn from them and we do better next time. Now, I just want you to stop for a minute and listen to me. I'm going to tell you this. You are so bad. Okay? How did that make you feel? Like, did you go like, what? How did your body feel when I said that to you? Versus me saying, everyone makes mistakes, but we learn from them and we'll do better next time. See the difference? There's a huge difference in that. Okay, you can always say, let's try a different approach next time. I believe in you and I know you can do better next time. I see you're having a tough time. Do you need my help? So your brother, one of your kids is throwing blocks at another one, and my grandkids do this, you know. Oh, I see you're having a tough time. Do you need my help? Do you need me to show you what you need to do? Do you need help? Do you need me to show you how to play with those blocks appropriately? Let's build together. There's just so many things you can say. I'm here to help you make better choices. I'm your mom. Let me help you. We all have moments when we could have done things differently. So if your children come home, one of your kids comes home and says, oh, I said something to somebody and I feel bad about it. You're like, you know what? We all have moments when we could have done things differently. What did you learn from this? How can we change that for next time? You kind of walk them through it. And then I love this one. You have so many strengths and I know you can use them to make things right. Okay, that's just 8 examples. There are so many more you can say for you are so bad. Okay, but those are just quick examples. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to think about the things that you're saying to your children, and I want you to write those down or record them and try to reframe them positively. But I also want you to think, do you hear yourself saying a phrase over and over and over again to your children, like it's just a common thing you say that's a negative thing? Start with that. Start with that. Reframe it. And now say it positively to them. And I know we all said this when we were growing up. When I grow up, I'm never going to act like my mother did or say like my mother did. And what do we all do? We hear our mother's mouths coming up, words coming out of our mouths, right? And you're like, oh, now I know why she acted like that or said that. Because you understand that's what you heard. That's how you parent. Doesn't mean it's right. So you can change it. You have the choice to change it. You just have to make the effort and put the work in to do it. Okay. For yourself, because we're quickly running out of time. When you are talking negatively to yourself, you are also impacting your own beliefs about yourself and your self-perception, but it also affects your parenting. Because if you don't think you're a good parent, you're like, I'm such a lousy parent. You can go, no, you know what? I'm a great parent. I'm just having an off day. I'm a good parent. I'm learning every day. I'll do better tomorrow. So instead of beating yourself up, I want you to change it to something positive. There's also some techniques you can use, and I use this on myself all the time. If I would have a negative self-talk, I would stop for a minute, self-thought, I would stop for a minute and I would say, cancel, cancel, cancel. Gone. It's gone. I don't want to hear anymore. Or I'd envision a broom sweeping it out of my head. Or now what I say is a negative thought comes in, I'll say, you can go now. You're dismissed. This no longer serves me. Stop it in its tracks and move on. Okay? Because it's so important. How you are talking to yourself is going to impact how you parent. Your children are also observing this, and that's going to inform how they parent or how they feel about themselves. Because if they're seeing that you're handling things like that, then they're going to handle things like that because that's what you model for them. Remember, I always preach this, model what you expect. I'm going to get like a tattoo, I think, like right here. Model what you expect, and then here it'll say, hug and love your babies. That'd be great. Okay, so it's something easy if you put time and effort into it. This is not difficult. I mean, you can Google, like, give me positive ways to say this phrase, okay? Or ask a friend, or buy the book and check out some of the examples I've given you. None of this is difficult. You just have to put time into it because that's what parents have to do. That's your job as a parent, right? To do the right thing for your children. All right, I'm going to go, here we go. Let me look at these comments. We have a few minutes left, and if we run over a little bit, I'm okay. I'm cool with that. As always, if I don't get to these comments now, I'll get to them afterwards. All right, let's see. What if your child is uncomfortable with the first tone of voice and always gets irritated when you're nice? Wow. Cheyenne, I need to know a little bit more about that. Your child is uncomfortable. So if you're talking negatively, I'm assuming, or yelling, they're uncomfortable with that. But then when you're nice, it makes them uncomfortable. Probably because they're not used to that. Like, what the heck's going on? I'm assuming. I would need to know more details on that. If you want to DM me, and we'll talk about that there. He screams at you and throws a tantrum. I would need to know how old the child is. Is he neurotypical, neurodivergent? All that's going to come into play. Okay, Susanna, hello. I'm good. I hope you are too. Europa, Serbia. Hey, Esther. Thank you for joining in. I'm glad you enjoy the videos. Hello, Karen, Linda. Hey, Linda. Missed you last night, girl. All right, Anu, I hope I said that right. BK, Becky, hey, Becky, Deb, Ontario, Pennsylvania. Hey, Marlene. Actually, my mother's name was Marlene, and I'm from Pennsylvania originally. We're twins. Okay, hello from Kuwait, Sine. Am I saying that right? All right. Renee wants to know if there's an audiobook available. You know, there isn't on this. I haven't even written a book on this one, like in real detail. I've done just the short one. I have not done an audiobook. That could be, I could transcribe that, what to say instead, into an audiobook. But I really want to dig into this in depth and probably write another book on this. I just feel so strongly about this. I just see the impact it can have on children and parents. You see, I'm frustrated. Cheyenne, yes, I need a hug. I get so frustrated when I hear these things. Okay, Maureen, thank you. Thank you for your kind words. All right, so if you come into this after I've already aired this, just hit hashtag replay. Let me know it's a replay. Say hello. Let me know where you're from. And if I do an audiobook on this, I will let you know because I'm trying to turn a lot of my audios a lot of my ebooks into audios, but my podcast will be audios. And they're just going to be 15, 20 minutes. I call them little bites, little snacks for you. Because, we're all busy. We don't have a lot of time to listen to hour-long podcasts. So anyway, all right. If you don't have any questions, we're good to go. And until I see you next week, remember, hug and love your babies.